Okay, so you're trying to cut through all the noise and really get a handle on these complex situations quickly.
Yeah, without wading through tons of documents. That's what we aim for.
Good. So today we're doing a deep dive into the Karen Reed retrial, and we're zooming in on some pretty critical stuff that's come up about the digital forensics expert Shannon Burgess.
And also the original lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor. It seems like there's a lot swirling around both of them.
Exactly. We've gone through news reports, court TV transcripts on YouTube, that kind of thing, to get a clearer view.
Trying to piece together these recent developments.
Right. And our mission, basically, is to unpack these key issues. You know, the ones raising serious questions about how reliable the forensic evidence is and, well, how the whole initial investigation was handled.
And we're going to frame a lot of this through the lens of commentary from a source called the Snarky AI.
Yeah, they offer a pretty pointed take, which is interesting.
It is. And what the Snarky AI really does well, I think, is cut straight to some big challenges the prosecution seems to be facing now, especially with the people who handle the evidence.
Okay, let's jump into that. The Snarky AI's take, they definitely don't pull any punches.
Seems quite direct.
So first off, they flagged Trooper Michael Proctor's behavior. He was the lead investigator early on, remember?
Right. And wasn't there testimony defending his integrity from his superior?
There was, yeah. But then it came out that Proctor himself sent these, honestly, quite disturbing text messages about Karen Reed.
Disturbing how?
Like really profane language, saying he wished her harm, even making gross jokes about nude photos. It's pretty bad.
Wow, okay.
And the Snarky AI points out this stark contrast, especially when the defense is basically saying Proctor is the prosecution's case, or at least their Achilles heel.
That does make you wonder, doesn't it? Could his personal feelings, have actually influenced how the investigation went?
You have to ask.
I mean, if the lead investigator feels that strongly negatively about the defendant, did they look at the evidence impartially? Was it thorough?
Exactly. The defense is definitely using this. The Snarky AI noted how powerful it was when those texts were read out in court.
Provides real ammunition for the defense.
What you're sure. But then, the Snarky AI's commentary gets maybe even sharper when they talk about the digital forensics expert Shannon Burgess from Aperture.
Ah, yes, the digital evidence guy.
Yeah. And the Snarky AI, well, they described his testimony pretty harshly, and here's where it gets really wild.
Okay.
Apparently, his professional profile online on Aperture's website listed a bachelor's degree he never actually got.
Wait, really? A degree he didn't earn?
Correct. Doesn't exist, apparently. And when the defense asked him about copying and pasting information without checking it...
Copying and pasting? In a forensic report?
Seems so. His response was apparently quite dismissive, something like, I didn't think it was significant.
That doesn't sound good. The Snarky AI picked up on that.
Oh, yeah. And they also mentioned how some experts, quoted by them, suggested this kind of misrepresentation might show, a willingness to bend the truth for money or professional gain.
That's a heavy implication. And it strikes right at the heart of the digital evidence, doesn't it?
Totally. Because the prosecution's timeline hinges so much on that data from the SUV and O'Keefe's phone.
If the expert presenting it has credibility issues.
Right. And the irony, which the Snarky AI absolutely pointed out, is that Burgess's own expertise is supposed to include investigating forensic fraud.
Oh, the irony is thick there. You really couldn't write that.
So what was his explanation for the resume thing?
He apparently called it a big company mistake. Said it was an old LinkedIn profile, like 20 years old, that hadn't been updated.
20 years?
Yeah. And the Snarky AI and some legal expert they mentioned who was apparently laughing about it found that, well, less than convincing.
You'd think attention to detail would be paramount in his line of work, even on his own CV.
It certainly raises a flag, doesn't it? About the level of care. If there are mistakes in something as basic as his own credentials.
It makes you question the rigor applied to the actual forensic analysis he did.
He's sacked.
And look, this wasn't just the Snarky AI being snarky. Court TV, NBC Boston, The Guardian, they all reported on this. The defense attorney, Robert Alessi, grilled Burgess on it during cross-examination.
So Burgess admitted it in court?
Yep. Admitted he never got the bachelor's degree, even though it was listed. His explanation, work and life got in the way.
Work and life, okay.
So, stepping back, what's the big picture impact here?
Well, the defense is clearly trying to undermine the prosecution's case, right? And that case leans heavily on this digital stuff.
Heavily.
So if they can successfully cast serious doubt on the expert who analyzed and presented that evidence,
it creates reasonable doubt about the whole timeline, the whole sequence of events the prosecution is putting forward.
Precise.
And it didn't stop there. The Snarky AI also pointed out Burgess admitted getting the date wrong in his own report. He put January 30th instead of the 29th.
Another detail error.
And Alessi, the defense attorney, apparently questioned him about some pretty basic digital unit conversions, like mixing up megabits and megabytes, gigabits and gigabytes.
Oh, wow. Okay, now for a lot of people, those sound similar, but technically?
They're vastly different amounts of data, right?
Hugely different. It's like confusing inches and miles, almost. In the data world, confusing bits and bytes fundamentally changes the interpretation of data size or transfer speed.
So, a potentially critical error in understanding the data itself.
It could be, yeah, if those calculations were central to his findings.
The Snarky AI also mentioned inconsistencies between Burgess's first report and a later supplemental one.
How so?
Well, initially it seemed like the prosecutor asked for the second report, but later Burgess testified he did it on his own initiative to correct what he called a misleading claim.
So, conflicting accounts of why this second report exists.
Yeah. That kind of back and forth, it just adds fuel to the defense's argument that the investigation maybe wasn't as straightforward or objective as it should have been.
It raises questions about motive, doesn't it? Was
Yeah.
it a genuine correction or an attempt to shore up the prosecution's story after the defense raised issues? The jury has to sort through that ambiguity.
And wait, there's more. The Snarky AI brought this up too. Apparently, during Burgess's testing, they found an SD card in Karen Reed's SUV that had been missed earlier.
Missed evidence during the forensic exam.
Seems like it. Plus, this time difference between 21 and 29 seconds found between the SUV's data and O'Keefe's phone data.
Okay, what's the significance of that?
Well, the defense argues, and the Snarky AI echoes this, that even a small discrepancy like that weakens the prosecution's tight timeline. They need that data synchronized perfectly to make their case about where the car was and when.
Right. Any variance introduces doubt about whether events happened exactly as the prosecution claims.
And court TV commentators were apparently discussing how all these issues, the resume, the date error, the conversions, the missed SD card, the time variance could really sway how the jury sees the digital evidence.
Absolutely. The missed SD card hints at maybe an incomplete initial search. The time variance introduces that element of uncertainty into the crucial link between the car and the phone. These aren't minor points.
So, putting it all together, the Snarky AI's commentary, backed up by these news reports and court details, it paints a picture where a key pillar of the prosecution's case, the digital forensics, is looking pretty shaky.
Seriously, under scrutiny. And given how much seems to rest on that digital evidence, these challenges are potentially massive for the prosecution.
Absolutely. And like the Snarky AI suggests, the defense strategy seems laser-focused on picking apart these exact things.
The reliability of the analysis and, as we talked about earlier, the conduct and potential bias of the initial investigator, Proctor.
Right. It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? With all these questions swirling around the evidence and the investigation, what does this mean for finding the actual truth? For justice in this case?
It really highlights how complex interpreting digital evidence can be.
And how crucial it is that the analysis is not just thorough, but completely unbiased.
Absolutely. The scrutiny has to be intense.
So for anyone listening who wants to dive even deeper, definitely check out the news coverage, the trial footage if you can find it. It helps to form your own view.
For sure. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on.
Okay.
In our world now, digital evidence is becoming so central in court cases. What standards, what safeguards do we really need to make sure that evidence is reliable and that the whole process from collection to presentation has integrity?
That's a big question. And this deep dive, especially looking through the Snarky AI's critical lens, certainly puts that question front and center.